How's it going, guys? Tego from SGN, back after a long time with some UFC coverage. And honestly, I didn't do any UFC videos for a while there because it wasn't getting any traction. It seemed like nobody was interested, but I love the UFC so much, I love mixed martial arts so much that I want to be talking about it. And even if people don't tune into it, I still want to cover it. Hopefully you guys will enjoy it. And yeah, let's just go ahead and get into UFC 226. Because I think that it's probably going to be a huge card. And of course, unfortunately, Max Holloway was forced to be taken off the card because he was having concussion-like symptoms. And before I get into the predictions, I want to give a big shout out to Max Holloway and also to Brian Ortega, but in particular to Max Holloway. You know, this guy, he really does represent the sport in a great way. He's open to every challenge. Whenever he's called upon, he accepts. And unfortunately, at 26 years of age, he is showing some really bad signs of possibly having some brain trauma. Of course, we don't know exactly the details of it. It might just be something to do with maybe some bad weight cutting, mixed with maybe some damage he took in training after 3 long training camps and stuff like that. He might just be needing a bit of time and rest, and maybe his brain was just a bit scrambled these past few days. Hopefully that's the case, and hopefully it isn't actual brain damage or anything like that. But we'll have to find out. And regardless, you know, a guy like Max Holloway, who seems like a great guy, always open to his fans, and just seems, like I said, a really genuine, nice guy. Nobody wants to see a guy like that having these kind of issues. So hopefully it's nothing major, and hopefully he will be coming back healthy very, I'm not going to say very soon, but take the necessary time to rest and coming back healthy. That's the important thing. But regardless, also hats off to Brian Ortega for going through all this. He's not accepting the fight against Jeremy Stephens, but honestly, I don't blame him in the least bit for that. After going so far in a very, very stacked division, it's kind of hard to say, okay, I'm just going to take a fight against I'm not going to say a random guy like Jeremy Stephens, but a guy who's very dangerous, who doesn't really have a lot of upside. Like, if you beat Jeremy Stephens, a lot of the casuals aren't really going to recognize it. So there's really no sense in him risking a title shot just to fight Jeremy Stephens. You know what I mean? I think Brian Ortega is making the right choice, waiting for the title shot, and that's pretty much the right choice. So let's just go ahead and get right into the predictions. I'm going to make some of these really short, and the last couple are going to be very, very in detail. More or less in detail, anyway. Starting off with Gokhan Saki versus Rountree. And this is going to be a very, very fun fight. I mean, Gokhan Saki, we saw his debut in the UFC. He's a fun little dude. He's definitely not little. He's a fucking giant. But you get the picture. He's a fun dude to watch. Like, his kickboxing, basically his pedigree speaks for itself. And I think that Lil Rountree is going to give him a very, very tough fight. It's going to be an interesting one to see. But, of course, I do have to go with Gokhan Saki. It's going to be a fun fight, without a doubt. Probably a knockout. We don't know what's going to happen in the first round, third round, second round, whatever. But you know for a fact it's going to be a tough fight. It's going to be a very fun stand-up fight. And I very much look forward to seeing what happens with that one. And then moving on to the fights that I really want to see. Michael Chiesa versus Anthony Pettis. This is going to be a big test for Anthony Pettis. We've seen him, obviously, ever since he was the champion. He has been on a very big downward spiral. This is an opportunity for him to take on somebody who is relatively close to a title shot and possibly get himself back into the mix. We haven't seen him looking good in a very long time, basically since he beat, who was it? No, not Gilbert Melendez. Who was it that he beat? He beat Ben Anderson. Yeah, since he beat Gilbert Melendez. That was the last time we saw him look actually really good. So we'll see what happens. You know, Michael Chiesa presents him a lot of problems. On the feet, he's a big, long guy, and have the reach advantage, so Anthony Pettis is going to have to sort of find his way around that. On the ground, they're pretty even, I would say. You know, Anthony Pettis has a relatively good guard game. We've seen him submit Benson Henderson and stuff like that, but unfortunately for him, we haven't really seen much of it after that. We've seen him get smothered by a lot of guys, so it's hard to say that he has a good ground game, a good guard game. Maybe on top he's a bit more dangerous, but it's hard to say. You know, Michael Chiesa, he's a guy that's dangerous in every single position on the ground. So we're going to see Anthony Pettis really be forced to fight his way on the feet and on the ground. It's not very often you can find somebody who's going to have the same kind of skill set as Anthony Pettis. I'm not going to say the same skill set because Michael Chiesa is very different on the feet, but it's going to be it's not every day you see Anthony Pettis matching up with a guy who's as dangerous as him on the feet. You know, he fought Edson Barboza, a great fight, got pieced up by Barboza, unfortunately for him. But overall, this is going to be a very fun fight, and I think this is actually a lot more evenly matched than it might be, but I am going to be picking Michael Chiesa in this one. I think that Anthony Pettis, as good as he is, he's just not, I don't know, this either something mentally blocking him right now, or maybe there's just something that we don't know about that's really giving him some issues, and for some reason he has never been able to reach the pinnacle or the heights that he had reached a few years ago when he was looking like he could possibly be one of the most dominant champions in the sport, one of the most entertaining fighters in the sport. And I still think that he has the potential of refinding at least a little bit of that. But will he ever be the Anthony Pettis we used to see? I don't know. Probably not. But this is a chance for him to possibly fight a guy who's going to almost guarantee him fight of the night bonuses and really see if he could possibly get himself towards that level again. But like I said, I am picking Michael Chiesa. I think he's too dangerous on the feet, too dangerous on the ground, and just overall, At this stage of their careers, Michael Chiesa is a bit more advanced and is going to be the better fighter on the night. Moving forward, we have another fight that's going to be an absolute barn burner. Paul Felder versus Platinum Mike Perry. This fight is a dream for any mixed martial arts fan. I mean, this isn't going to be a fight between two guys that are going to be fighting strategic, fighting in a way that's basically just going to be point fighting like a lot of people hate. This is going to be two guys going balls to the wall, throwing spinning shit, throwing just about every single thing that's in the book. They're going to be throwing that stuff at each other. It's going to be a barn burner. And Mike Perry, he has like 11 knockouts and 11 wins. I think Paul Felder has either 11 knockouts and 15 wins or 15 wins and 10 knockouts, something like that. Regardless, he has a lot of knockouts. These are two guys that are very heavy-handed, very dangerous. Paul Felder, I would say, is a bit more dangerous because he has elbows, he has punches, he has awesome kicks, he has knees. He's a bit more well-rounded. He's also on the ground. He's a lot more dangerous than Mike Perry is. So I do favor him in this fight. But Mike Perry, he has that it factor. He has that just, pure savage, move forward mentality, and it's just that Jersey mentality. If he moves forward, he's going to be always dangerous. But I still think that Paul Felder, he is more well-rounded. He is more dangerous in just about every aspect of mixed martial arts. So I am going to be picking him. Is he going to be a knockout? I don't know, because Mike Perry is tough as nails. But I am going to go with like a third-round finish for Paul Felder, just because I think that Paul Felder is such a savage. And I do expect him to move up the rankings. I'm not going to say like pretty quickly, but I think that he has plenty of potential to really be moving up there. And one big shame was the fact that they gave the title fight to Al Iaquinta and not Paul Felder. And I'm not talking about the UFC. It wasn't the UFC's fault. Paul Felder definitely deserved that shot against Khabib Nurmagomedov more than Al Iaquinta, in my opinion, because he's more dangerous than Al Iaquinta. Al Iaquinta, he's a good fighter. He's got okay wrestling. He's got heavy hands, but Paul Felder presented a lot more dangerous, a lot more of a danger for Khabib Nurmagomedov, in my opinion, but it is what it is. Regardless, I think that Paul Felder has a lot of upside, and realistically, he's one of those guys that with a couple of wins could be very, very close to a title shot. Mike Perry, I think he's a bit farther away from that, but I think that, both of these guys are definitely going to be up there. Paul Felder is, of course, fighting against a welterweight. We've seen Paul Felder, for the most part, at lightweight. So is the fact he's going to be at welterweight going to be a factor? I don't really think so, because if you look at these guys, I think that Paul Felder is actually probably going to be the bigger man. If I'm not mistaken, he's going to be like 2 or 3 inches taller than Mike Perry, because Mike Perry is a very thick guy, but he's not tall, whereas Paul Felder, he's thick and he's tall. So I do favor Paul Felder, excuse me. Moving on to the co-main event, and this fight, even with Brian Ortega out and Brian Ortega versus Max Holloway scrapped, this fight was easily going to be one of my favorite ones. I think that Holloway versus Ortega was pretty much on par, if not even more interesting to me than this main event. But even this fight, Derrick Lewis versus Francis Ngannou, phenomenal fight. Don't blink. That's all I'm going to say. Do not blink, because these two guys are born to knock people out. I mean, Ngannou, of course, if he touches you, you're pretty much guaranteed to explode. Even Miocic, who dominated him in that fight, when he did get touched, you could see it hurt like hell. He was dazed with just about every single shot. So that just goes to show you how much of a heavy-handed hitter, how much of an absolute beast Francis Ngannou is. And Miocic has a monster chin on him, but still, Ngannou was able to hurt him pretty badly and really get him close to being in some really, really dangerous positions here and there. And Derrick Lewis, he's another guy that we have seen time and time again have absolute dynamite in his hands. We saw that shot that he landed against Roy Nelson where his head popped back and spit went flying. It was one of the most amazing shots that I've ever seen. And I think that it's really going to be a matter of which one of these two dudes can land one of those major shots first. I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see. I'm going to lean towards the Black Beast in this one. I don't know why. Francis Ngannou, I think, has a bit more upside and stuff like that. But I think that the Black Beast, in some weird way, has more cardio. Like, Francis Ngannou was exposed pretty badly by Stipe in that fight. And Derrick Lewis might be able to take him down. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that Derrick Lewis is probably going to want to stand up with him. Maybe hold him against the cage, though. You never know. But regardless, for some reason, and I think these guys are pretty closely matched, I am going to go with Derrick Lewis. And that might come back to bite me in the ass and backfire on me big time, because Francis Ngannou, he can knock out a fucking elephant. He can knock out a fucking rhinoceros. But for some reason, my heart says Derrick Lewis, and I'm going to go with Derrick Lewis. It might be because I love the dude because of his Instagram is so phenomenal. The way that he just always talks so much stuff about Ronda Rousey, it's just so hilarious. So it might be my heart telling me something that my brain shouldn't be telling me. But I am going to go with Derrick Lewis. And moving on to the main event, which is without a doubt probably the biggest super fight in mixed martial arts history. One of the only real legit super fights in the sport's history. Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier. Heavyweight champion, the best heavyweight champion of all time, arguably the best heavyweight of all time, taking on one of the best light heavyweights of all time, realistically the second best light heavyweight of all time. A guy who was undefeated at heavyweight, beating guys like Bigfoot Silva, who was on monster steroids. That was when Bigfoot Silva was an absolute savage. Beating a guy like Josh Barnett, one of the greatest heavyweights of all time with so much experience. When DC was so early on in his career, he grabbed Josh Barnett, threw him over his head, and just dropped him on his fucking head. That showed how much of a dangerous heavyweight Daniel Cormier is. Because even at, Josh Barnett, even now, he's no slouch. He can really beat just about anybody on his day. So for Daniel Cormier, who was so early in his mixed martial arts career, take on a veteran like that and destroy him the way he did, that shows how good Daniel Cormier was. Not just as a mixed martial artist in general, but as a talent, even at his older age, and most importantly, as a heavyweight. He has the physical strength to really contend with all these dudes, and there's no doubt about it. That's going to be a very, very big test for Stipe. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. It might actually be Stipe's biggest test in his career. Like, apart from this, maybe Francis Ngannou's power, but really, Francis Ngannou had big holes in his game. Apart from maybe Daniel Cormier, Junior Dos Santos, when they fought the first time, that was Junior Dos Santos who was really, really firing on all cylinders. And that really did show that Junior Dos Santos was still at it, and that showed just how good Miocic was. That was a fight that really, in my opinion, proved that Miocic could definitely become one of the best heavyweights of all time. And realistically, if I had to pick a heavyweight right now, based on what he's done, defending his title 3 times, the only guy that, in my opinion, in his prime, that could really compete with him was Cain Velasquez. Unfortunately, we didn't see Cain Velasquez at his absolute peak for long enough. He had back problems, and he still hasn't come back, really, and we don't know what he's going to look like if he does come back. But in my opinion, if you take Prime Stipe, put him against Prime Cain, that is the epitome of heavyweight warfare. Seeing those two guys go at it would be absolutely ideal, but regardless, as of right now, Daniel Cormier, he presents elite wrestler, probably the highest level wrestling we've ever seen in mixed martial arts. He presents really good dirty boxing. He's able to really use his physique, use his weight very well, and weigh on people, make him tired. And just overall, Daniel Cormier is a very, very dangerous fighter. He has a good chin on him. Of course, he got knocked out by John Jones, but that was a devastating leg kick where he was practically leaning his head straight into the head. Not a leg kick, a head kick, where he practically leaned his head straight into the kick. So it was, perfect circumstances for John Jones to land that kick. So we know he has a great chin. Is he gonna resist against a guy who hits as hard as Stipe Miocic, who's as fast as Stipe Miocic? We don't know. It's gonna be a very fun fight though, and in my opinion, it's gonna be a very, very close fight. I do have Stipe winning, and I do have Stipe winning by finish. I don't know what round, if it's gonna be early or late, but for some reason, I just think that Daniel Cormier is gonna make it a very, very close fight in the first couple rounds. And then, as time goes on, maybe carrying that much weight is going to be a bit of a factor for him. Stipe's footwork, I think, is going to give him a lot of problems, and Stipe is going to be landing a lot of shots up close. I do think that eventually he will hurt Daniel Cormier, he will get him down, and he will beat him by ground and pound, or even by flash knockout. You never know, but regardless, I'm going to be picking Stipe Miocic. And of course, that's not like I'm picking the underdog or anything like that. It's of course Stipe Miocic is going to be the favorite, because when you get two guys that are so evenly matched, two guys that are so skilled, you usually pick the bigger guy, because the bigger guy is going to have the strike advantage, going to have the reach advantage, and generally that does favor him in a big way. Of course, if there's anybody who can get past those odds, it is Daniel Cormier, but I do think that Stipe Miocic, with the physical advantages and the fact that he is so damn good, and pretty much as good as DC, if not as good, if not better, definitely better striker. Wrestling, of course, Daniel Cormier has more pedigree, but the fact that he's bigger and all that stuff, I think, and he does have a really good wrestling game himself, I just think it's going to balance out on the ground when it comes to the wrestling, and on the feet, Stipe is going to have a bigger advantage, and he will be able to put down the beating on Daniel Cormier, and he will become a 4-time defending world champion, which realistically, that is something that's just phenomenal. Like, if he could do that, considering the fact that the record was 2, for him to go on to 4, beating Daniel Cormier, beating Dos Santos, who else did he beat? Francis Ngannou, beating Alistair Overeem, the record speaks for itself. At that point, he would have to be the best heavyweight of all time, unless maybe Cain Velasquez comes up and beats him. If that were to happen, then Cain definitely puts himself right back in there. But in my opinion, Stipe Miocic is already the greatest heavyweight of all time. If he beats Daniel Cormier, it just cements himself even more, and that would be a huge coup for one of the best heavyweights and one of the best fighters we have ever seen. So thank you so much, guys, for watching. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think of my predictions. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you enjoy it? Because I know I'm very rusty with these videos. I haven't done this in probably like 6 months, I would say. Maybe not 6, but borderline 6 months. So I am a bit rusty. I'm going to be doing these a lot. I'm going to be coming right back at you guys. I'm not doing the one for the fights tonight, because of course they are tonight, and I'm not really going to have time to edit and all that stuff. But with the main fights, all the Fox cards, all that stuff is going to be coming back to this channel. Hopefully you guys aren't mad at me for not doing these for so long, but I am promising you guys I am back. So if you enjoyed the video, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. That way every time I put out a video, you'll be notified and you'll be one click away from watching the video. Once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.